Good morning, everybody. Good morning to fellow South Africans, the globe. We are here in Pretoria outside of the Zimbabwean Embassy. ActionSA is here. Team FixSA member for international relations, Ntate Soli Moeng, is here to present our stance on hard diplomacy in relation to dealing with the global issues and the global crises that we are facing all around the world. What is most important is South Africa's space in the global arena, and so we are here to articulate our position on all of that. The order of proceedings is going to be very simple. We are going to have the president of ActionSA give us a little bit more context, Mr. Herman Mashaba. He will be followed by Team FixSA member, Mr. Soli Moeng, who is the responsible for international relations, and then at the end we will round up with some Q&A if that is possible. Let me give the floor now to Mr. Herman Mashaba.
Thank you very much, Lerato. Thank you very much, Mr. Moeng, our team member for international relations, ActionSA, and fellow South Africans. Fellow South Africans, we are gathered in front of the Zimbabwean Embassy in Pretoria today, as this building is a symbolic of the ruling party's international relations policy failures. This building is symbolic of how the ruling party has time and again chose its Cold War relationships above the needs of the South African people. The ruling party's approach to international relations does not only hurt South Africa's global reputation, but hurt the South African people. We see exorbitant price increases, uncontrollable inflation, and the escalating price of bread. But we also see the influx of refugees, such as those from Zimbabwe, who flee oppressive regimes because South Africa's ruling party fails to keep them accountable. Why must our people pay for the ruling party's failures? We need to see this change. Fellow South Africans, the ruling party's support for the ruling ZANU-PF is nothing short of a crime against the people of Zimbabwe. For 12 years, the ANC fought tooth and nail, spending millions in legal fees to ensure that the 2002 Kampepe report did not see the day of light. When the report by Sinsi Kampepe and Dikhambu Seneke, highly respected South African jurist, was finally released following a constitutional court ruling in 2014, it revealed the politically inconvenient truth. The 2002 Zimbabwean election was rigged in favor of the ZANU-PF. However, the ANC government, which commissioned the report in 2002, decided against its findings and sided with the bodies in the ZANU-PF, effectively endorsing what then became an authoritarian regime. If the ANC had the political will and mobilized the international community to ensure accountability in Zimbabwe, things today might have been different. The ANC's decision to endorse the 2002 elections helped Zimbabwe to further slip into economic decline and further allowed human rights abuses. In 2008, the ruling party again supported Zimbabwean election results, leading to an economic crisis which saw millions of Zimbabweans fleeing to here in South Africa. Today, South Africans are paying the price for the ruling party's blind loyalty to the ZANU-PF. But it is no longer has to be this way. We can have a government which puts the people of South Africa first. Fellow South Africans, ActionSA's foreign policy approach is grounded in the belief that the South African government should attempt to advance global human rights and democracy and always have the interest of the South African people at heart. We should not take any decision which hurt our people, including increasing local economic pressures by supporting the dictator next door, but instead demand accountability. Therefore, as a leading player on the continent, South Africa must foster a Pan-African outlook, promoting unity, peace, and socio-economic and political cooperation throughout the continent. Within this framework and working with our African partners, ActionSA envisages an equitable, integrated, and united Africa, one that champions sustainable development, economic prosperity, and social justice. To be clear, ActionSA's foreign policy approach will not isolate South Africa from the rest of the world, but we will improve our international relations through mutual dialogue and understanding. Understanding that we live in a global economy, ActionSA would improve our immigration policies to make it easier for people to enter and exit our country. But when people of the world come to South Africa, we want them to do so legally and obey our laws once here in our country. Our team FixSA South Africa member for international relations, Mr. Moeng, will shortly further unpack ActionSA's approach to foreign nationals. Fellow South Africans, to reiterate, an ActionSA government would ensure that South Africa again takes its rightful place as the defender of human rights while ensuring people's interests are protected. But for that to happen, all sectors of society have to work together to bring about change in our foreign policy approach. For us to fix our international relations, we have to take action to remove the ruling party and vote for an alternative that puts our people first. Because only action will fix South Africa. It is a shame that South Africa has in the past chosen dictators above the will of the people. But I do not doubt that we can and soon will only achieve better, more prosperous South Africa, but indeed a better world. Because by taking action, it is possible to fix our country. I now call on Mr. Moeng and welcome him to further unpack ActionSA's approach to foreign policy once ActionSA has been elected and given the mandate by the voters of South Africa to be the government for our country. Thank you very much. Mr. Moeng, the floor is yours.
President Mashaba, thank you very much. Lerato, fellow actioners, South Africans out there, I'm really delighted to be here today and to be part of this drive to finally get to fix South Africa if you allow us to do so. So as it's already been said, my name is Moeng. I'm a reputation management strategist, a columnist, a political commentator and lecturer by trade. That is before I came here. And I couldn't say no to President Mashaba and ActionSA's call to say, look, you have been making this noise outside the tent for so many years. It's time you come and join us. All of us, actually accidental politicians, to come and roll up our sleeves and work for this country, both at home and across the world. So we'll know by now that many of us are accidental politicians, as I say. We are all concerned South Africans who have said yes to a call to return home, in my case, and roll up our sleeves to be part of healing our abused and pained South Africa. For my part, I've been entrusted with the role of leading the task to shape ActionSA's proposal for South Africa's reposition in the global arena going forward. And as a start, we believe that it must be grounded firmly and not selectively on protecting and enhancing fundamental human and environmental rights. This was also Mandela's vision back at the dawn of our democracy. And ladies and gentlemen, our world is faced with uncertain times, with the resurgence of regional hostilities, ongoing wars in the Middle East, Eastern Europe, and parts of our continent in Africa. Just this morning, CNN and other global news channels were announcing a possible genocide that might have taken place in Sudan. And a lot of these conflicts and human rights abuses have happened in Africa. South Africa has not done much decisively to raise its voice and say this cannot be accepted. So we are also faced with a certain global economic downturn and rising inflation, which are beginning to take their toll. As we stand at the crossroads of history, it becomes more important than ever to envision a future where the harmonized rhythms of our country's vibrant tapestry resonate within our borders and reverberate with strength and unity in other parts of the world. Over the past number of years, our foreign policy has become inconsistent. It has been running contrary to what South Africa's objectives should be on the global stage. Those of a leading African democracy with a unique voice in a fragmented world that is struggling to find a new balance. Today, I stand with President Mashaba and my colleagues outside the Zimbabwean Embassy here in Pretoria, a country whose people South Africa has, under the ANC, massively disappointed through a misplaced phenomenon of quiet diplomacy that has only emboldened the perennially misgoverning and abusive ZANU-PF regime and ensuring that it remains entrenched in power. As a party committed to basic and inalienable human rights, ActionSA has long maintained, alongside other observers, that the current ZANU-PF government in Zimbabwe was not democratically elected and is directly responsible for the economic meltdown in that country, with all the severe spillover effects that we have come to see in our own South Africa over the years. Quiet diplomacy needs to be replaced with hard diplomacy. A hard diplomacy with a heart, which makes it clear which lines should not be crossed, as well as making sure our partners know that our contribution to aiding developments in other parts of the world will not come at the cost of neglecting South Africans here at home. Today, Cold War-era alliances continue to stubbornly take precedence over the lives of ordinary South Africans. Zimbabwe remains a country that should be a strong economic partner north of our borders, one in which we could trade, or with which we could trade and grow together after many years of apartheid and racist rule that denied black citizens equal opportunities in both Zimbabwe and South Africa. Today, Zimbabwe's economic meltdown has meant that what could have been our great partner has become a burden, with an estimated 1.5 million of its people seeking refuge in South Africa. This has, of course, placed a large strain on healthcare in South Africa, education, housing, and other South African taxpayer-funded services. We believe strongly that we must have a government that works for South Africans, not just the ANC's ideological interest and dogma. Irrespective of which party leads the government, it should support local businesses, entrepreneurs, and the country's citizens ahead of its parties and interests, be they financial or ideological. With the once widely respected African National Congress at the helm, archaic Soviet-era ideologies still shape political language and the country's international relations. With emotions running high in South Africa's current policy, West is associated with former colonizers, and it's to be shunned. And the East, which is principally associated with China and Russia, are to be embraced with incomprehensible fervor. Often, the latter seems to be done just for the pleasure of getting back at the West at great economic consequences for our country. The ANC's reckless miscalculations on the global stage continue to threaten solid partnerships with countries such as the US, a country to which we exported goods worth more than $258 billion in 2023, accounting for some 12.6% of our exports. By comparison, South Africa exported goods worth a mere $5.2 billion to Russia in 2023, representing only 0.5% of our total exports. The need to have a balanced foreign policy mindful of key issues affecting South Africa, Southern Africa, Africa, the Global South, and the rest of the world has never been more paramount. South Africa needs to begin to put economic diplomacy at the center of our foreign policy as our economy continues to falter. ActionSA will seek to build robust economic partnerships grounded in mutual benefit and focused on fostering innovation, technological advancements, and skills development with all our partners in other parts of the world. We will leverage our strategic geographical position and rich resources to foster regional economic integration, improve connectivity, and facilitate trade and investments. As a leading player on the continent, South Africa must foster a Pan-African outlook. This cannot be avoided. We must promote unity, peace, socio-economic and political cooperation throughout the continent. Within this framework and working with our African partners, ActionSA envisages an equitable, integrated and united Africa, but one that champions sustainable development, economic prosperity and social justice. This means for us in South Africa, there is a strong need to amplify our unique South African voice and tone in a way that is not skewed and driven to pit any part of the world against another. And we must have a voice that is so independent, that is so uniquely South African, that we are not scripted elsewhere. The foreign policy of this country must be scripted here in South Africa. This is what we propose as an ActionSA. So armed with our rich human diversity, we have an opportunity to position South Africa as a trusted mediator in conflict prevention, conflict resolution, and in contributing to an environment for sustainable global peace. But we cannot do this by throwing tantrums in the global arena for the sake of simply expressing outrage. And please don't get me wrong, the expression of outrage is both important and inevitable in the face of gross human rights abuses and genocidal drives, irrespective of the identity of the perpetrators and the victims. But global leadership, which is what ActionSA proposes for South Africa, is about finding lasting solutions to even seemingly intractable conflicts, such as the ones happening in the Middle East, in Eastern Europe, the Sudan, the Congo, and elsewhere. South Africa will stay the course, no matter how hard it might seem at times. We will not run away because things are tough. We will stay there, work with others, because the aim is never to get everything the way we want. The world of winners take all, zero-sum games must finish. It's gone. We have to work in a world where we can create a space for everybody so that we, South Africans, can continue to thrive in partnership with and alongside other partners around the world. Leadership is also about being frank, about calling out human rights abuses for what they are in our own continent. If charity really begins at home, we should be as concerned about human rights violations perpetrated by despots in Africa as we are about violations in other parts of the world. Leadership isn't about pleasing everyone all the time, which is why we believe in 3 core principles which should guide our foreign policy. The first one is the need for us to reaffirm a commitment to democratic principles, peaceful resolution to conflict, and harmonious coexistence with our neighbors, while respecting the sovereignty of each one of them. Our foreign policy will strive to foster good relations with our neighbors, recognizing that their security and prosperity are bound to ours. We shall work through bilateral engagements or regional organizations like the South African Development Community, the African Union, and other bodies. Furthermore, let it be clear that ActionSA will maintain South Africa's participation in the BRICS formation, the G20, and all other cooperative forums around the world. We also recognize the pressing need for global governance reforms, where we must advocate for a more inclusive and representative United Nations, including the reform of the United Nations Security Council, to strengthen the voices and the representation of African nations and others in the global South. We shall therefore pursue a foreign policy that is keen on forging alliances that advance the interests of global South, affirming the spirit of unity, collaboration, and mutual respect. We must underscore that ActionSA-led South African government will only participate in these forums under the condition that such engagement serves our nation's interests. We are committed to ensuring that South Africa and her people's interests are consistently prioritized above all else in any international cooperative engagement that we agree to get into. The second principle is the need to protect, enhance, peaceful, democratic, and economically prosperous African governance and leadership, ending poverty, unemployment, and inequality. And to achieve this vision, ActionSA actively supports initiatives to end poverty, unemployment, and inequality across the continent, working in partnerships with our partners in Africa and other parts of the world. More importantly, those initiatives that will culminate in our continent moving from being a mere supply of raw materials to value-added goods that can improve overall GDPs across the African continent, so that ordinary men, women, and children don't have to see the need to run away from their own countries to go into others seeking refuge. The third principle is a fair multilateral system with equitable representation, leading to a balanced global power dynamic. ActionSA believes that the world's multinational or multilateral institutions must reflect the diversity of the global community. We therefore advocate for a fair multilateral system that ensures equitable representation and power sharing between countries from the global north to the global south. South Africa actively participates in international forums such as the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, and the G20, and it remains a signatory to a good number of global conventions. We must continue doing this to promote a more inclusive and just global order. We have all intentions to work with our partners towards creating opportunities to developing nations to have a place at the table where rules, norms, and policies that govern the world are determined. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, as ActionSA, we are aware that there are some misconceptions on how we view and address certain burning issues on the global stage. I'm not going to mention some of them, but I think it's important that I mention these so that you all know that we are aware of what is being said about us, and we don't ignore those things, but we do have stances on each one of these things. The first one is the Middle East conflict. The second one is Russia and Ukraine. The third one is the death of the Iranian president, which happened a few days ago. And other high-ranking officials also died with him following a reported helicopter crash. But there's also misplaced perceptions about ActionSA being xenophobic. Now, in all these issues, we believe that the rule of law, local and international, underpinned by consideration for human rights, especially those of threatened communities around the world, must always prevail. It cannot be defended that we speak out on abuses in some parts of the world and not in others, especially in Africa. Where matters are already being handled by respected international courts, particularly the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court, we stand behind the justices of such courts, assessing all evidence placed before them and issuing fair judgments without fear, favor, or prejudice. And we call upon everybody involved to respect and adhere to whatever judgments come out of these courts. We also remain resolute that our immigration processes, including our notoriously porous border crossings, cannot reasonably be left as they are. Porous borders undermine our democratic state and make it difficult for those who wish to enter South Africa to do so legally. We also condemn any discriminatory acts of violence committed against foreign nationals. I have to repeat this. We also condemn any discriminatory acts of violence committed against foreign nationals, regardless of their immigration status. This is where ActionSA stands. We do not look away from pain, and we do not call for pain to be called upon vulnerable people. That would never be the South Africa that we have got to be. We propose to simplify administrative procedures to make it easier for refugees, immigrants, tourists, and asylum seekers to enter South Africa legally using the right channels. This is important for national security and economic integrity. It is also important if our country is to be taken off the grey list so that we can regain our credibility as a country whose financial institutions are not suspected to serve the interests of global organized crime. Anyone can come to South Africa from anywhere in the world, but it cannot be that negotiable. It cannot be negotiable, ladies and gentlemen, that people enter our country illegally, aided or unaided. No country in the world tolerates that, and it is not fair to expect South Africa to be an exception in this regard. And ultimately, our vision is founded in the aspirations enshrined in the preamble of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa for our country to strive to build a united, democratic South Africa able to take its rightful place as a sovereign state in the global family of nations. Now, ladies and gentlemen, these are the things that we promise as ActionSA. We promise them because we know they are possible to be done. They can be done when you have a team leader in this country that is determined to work for the people of South Africa and for the world, because we are not an island in the world. So we rely on South Africans to support us. It's been 30 years of abuses of a pained country. 30 more years would be a call for self-flagellation. And 30 more years of the current status quo would end up in a country where no change is ever possible again, because they would be tampering with our current laws, even the Constitution, to ensure that no changes happen. And I would like to thank you very much, and we look forward to the support of everybody out there looking, following ActionSA and looking at whether or not we're going to answer the questions that I have answered now in respect to the misperceptions that there are about ActionSA's offering and stance on these very, very hot issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Really wonderful. Thank you. I think it's done.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moeng, for that comprehensive outline of our stance on hard diplomacy. Thank you so much, Mr. Mashaba, for your leadership. We always appreciate that. I will now open up for questions if there are any. Okay, we're also happy to do one-on-ones, and so at a point in which we are happy to do that, we will do that. Thank you very much. With that said, that is the end of our conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.